Welcome, welcome. I'm so looking forward to this conversation, something that is going to make a difference for so many firm owners. This is Loren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, and today's topic is hot tips for accounting firms to deliver an effective engagement letter. And this conversation is going to be with Jamie Peebles. So you are in the right place if you want client-friendly engagement letters, and also understanding or insights about the impacts of firms transitioning to the subscription model, and looking for just some of those tips to make your engagement letter easy and also to start moving in the direction of value pricing your firm's services. So I suggest you have pen and paper ready because Jamie is going to generously share a lot. And then as we wrap up, we'll let you know how you can follow up with him and have a further conversation. A little bit about Jamie. Jamie Peebles is the founder of Knuula. It's an engagement letter solution for accounting firms. And if you are the type that's transitioning to a subscription model, this is especially built for you. So basically, it removes all the headaches by automating the engagement letter process. I've seen it in action. It absolutely works. Jamie's a lawyer and he's turned full stack developer. So over the last 3 years or so, he's helped firms across the country generate thousands of engagement letters. And also by doing that, it's automated, eliminates hundreds of hours of admin work. And you can learn more about Knuula at Knuula.com, which is KNUULA.com. Jamie, let's go ahead and kick off our conversation today. And just want to say, before anything else, we've had several conversations already. We've gotten acquainted, and would just love to hear a little bit more about how you decided to move in this direction, especially since you started out as an attorney.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this and that great intro. That was awesome. So I actually, before I went to law school, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and start a business. And I thought that understanding the law would be beneficial for that. So that's why I went there in the first place. And while I was in law school, I also started taking classes as a coder and did some software development classes because I thought that'd be helpful in the future as well. And once I graduated and I passed the bar, I was actually working at an accounting firm in Dallas, a small accounting firm. And I did a bunch of tax work, some tax law research, and they also made me do engagement letters because I was the only lawyer there. And so I was the only one that really kind of understood this process out of the gate. So in doing that, I realized it was a terrible process. So super time consuming and repetitive. These firms had to do it every single year, over and over and over again. So I started looking for a different solution that could basically solve this and automate it for me. And I couldn't really find anything that really worked. And so that's when I ventured off and started Knuula. And that's how it got going.
So you thought you were going in one path, which was the legal path, and then ended up in a total different direction.
Very much so.
Yeah. Sounds like it found you instead of you finding it, which is fantastic. And just so that we're all on the same page, can you go ahead and explain what an engagement letter is and its purposes?
Yes. So it's really just a contract for services. And in the accounting world, they've deemed it an engagement letter. And really, it's just a contract between you, the accounting firm, and your clients that says the services you're going to offer, how much those services are going to cost, how you're going to pay them, and then other boilerplate legal things like indemnity and other things like that.
And just out of curiosity, because I've reviewed many engagement letters, they go from the 1-pagers to 10-pagers. Are there essentials that people ought to have in engagement letters so that they've really covered their bases?
Yeah, for sure. You always want to put some sort of description of services in general. And people will be at varying degrees of how specific that is. So sometimes people would just say, we're offering tax services, and that's it. That's all they say. And then sometimes they'll list out what services they're offering and what tax forms they're preparing. So I see a wide range of that, but in general, you always want to put what service you're offering. You should put something that indicates what the price is or how much the client's going to be paying, or some way of calculating it. And so that could be something like an hourly rate. So some firms will just toss that, here's our hourly rate, that's what we're going to bill you at. So that gives them a way.
You went ahead and froze on me. So if you
Oh,
can
no.
just maybe tell me about the description, that's where we froze.
Okay.
Technology.
Yeah, that's probably on my end. Okay, so basically you always want some description of the services, and it can be as general as something like just tax services, or it could be specific. And sometimes people will list out the exact services they're offering, the exact tax forms that they're preparing, and so they can go into great detail with that. The other one is pricing. So you want to put the actual price or some way to calculate it. So sometimes firms will just put an hourly rate, because that's, because they don't know how much they're going to charge. So they say, here's our hourly rate. Or they'll be very specific, or they'll, put one fee, or they'll put some kind of monthly fee or recurring fee.
Mm-hmm.
So you always want that. And then generally everything else, you want the name of the client and all of that. And then any kind of boilerplate legal language that's recommended by your insurance carrier. So those are things like an indemnity clause, limits on liability, and there's a few other things about out of scope work that you might want to toss in as well.
So one of the things that you said, which I thought was really interesting, and most firm owners might not think about it, is they might want to check in with their insurance carrier to see if there's any language that they ought to include in their engagement letter, correct?
Yes. So most insurance carriers that work specifically with accounting firms, they normally actually have engagement letters that they send to you or have available for you somewhere. If not, there's some that are probably available online. I know of one, there's a group called McGowan Insurance Pro. That's the one I have the best relationship with, who I've actually had a relationship with for a couple of years now. And they send us engagement letters that we can put on Knuula to make available for other people. So these insurance providers—
That's very generous.
It is. They're wonderful. I do like them quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And because it's something that's so critical for firm owners to have in place for them as well as for clients, I think it creates a lot of transparency. Why is it so cumbersome and it just takes so long to either put it together or eventually get it out?
It gets complicated or gets cumbersome the more complex or specific the engagement letter is. So even the most, and then the other thing is volume. So it's basically, we look at it, and at Knuula, we look at it as complexity and volume. Complexity is really the amount of customization that you want per engagement letter. So if you're sending out a really simple engagement letter, it's not difficult to send out 10 of those and prepare 10 of them. Now, if you're a firm who needs to send out 300 of those, now the volume is going to make this a large administrative task, because now you need to change the client's name in a document, probably a Word document, convert it to a PDF, upload it to some kind of e-signature platform, place signature fields in it, and then send it to the client. And now if you do that 300 times, that takes a while. And so volume is something that makes it very cumbersome. And the other one is complexity, or the amount of customization. So when firms want to put specific services in there or very detailed client specific prices, that's again something now they're having to go through the document and one by one change little items for one client. And maybe it'll take them 10 minutes, maybe it'll take them 45 minutes, depends on how much stuff they're changing. And then they have to go through the whole e-signature process as well, convert it to a PDF, upload it, place fields, and then send it.
And with the volume and the customization, do you find that there are certain types of firms that your product is a better fit for, just because of the fact that it might be so time consuming?
Yeah, we actually are finding that out more and more in the past 9 months, really. So we've done some things recently that make it so you can put a very large amount of customization in the engagement letters while still making like 100 of them at a time. So you can have 100 different engagement letters where all of them are super unique for each client, and you can do that in bulk. So since we've been able to do that, now we're seeing a lot more CAS or advisory services, firms that are providing that kind of thing. And then the other one is audit, firms that are providing audit services. That's extremely specific and customized. So we're getting more audit firms.
And one of the things that I was talking about in the intro was about people going to the subscription model. So if their firm is moving towards the subscription model, having packages, how does this help them by making it easier?
Yes. And this is also how you and I got into contact in the first place. It's because I had one of my customers who had been working with you for a long time, actually, and they came in with these great packages and a plan, and so that was awesome. We could talk more about that too, but yeah. So these firms that are kind of switching to a subscription model, they have a couple packages that they offer, and each of those packages has specific services that go along with it, and then there's a price, and so that's great and it's awesome. And I think it's what firms are going to continue to do and what they should do. But the administrative side of that is difficult because now you're taking, say you have 500 clients. Now you need to go and send them a document that has their specific package in it. And it has the name of the package, the description of it. It has the services that go with that package. And then you're also sending them a price that might be a monthly recurring price or an annual price. So those are all little customizations that these firms need to have in their documents. And so, the administrative side of rolling out your subscription model is what I've seen as a big difficulty for a lot of firms.
Then from listening to you, I can see even with smaller firms, especially if they're doing packages and maybe tax work where they have more volume than a bookkeeping firm, might really benefit from something like that just because of the time and the capacity problems.
Absolutely. That's actually exactly what we see is firms who have a big volume of tax clients that are still around, and then maybe a smaller volume of these clients that they're switching to a subscription model with. They're trying to grow that number. And so then it's challenging.
And as we were starting to talk about packages, this is also the way that accounting firms, whether they do tax or regular accounting, bookkeeping, cash services, are able to move away from hourly rates. So tell me how that helps with the transition.
Making the packages and all of that?
So we were talking about how the engagement process and having that letter automated helps firms move away from hourly rates over towards value pricing or just charging for their time.
It makes it so they can implement it quickly. And actually, when you think about it as more of a sales cycle, instead of accountants don't normally think of things as sales, but really like you want to be quick. You want to call up your client and tell them, hey, this is what we're offering. Here are these services. Here's my package that we can provide. And then you immediately can want to be able to send them something where they go, yep, sounds good. Let's do it. And now if that is if the administration of that is difficult, where you hang up the phone and 5 days later, you're sending them this document. Now that breaks up the sales cycle, it slows things down. You might potentially lose that offer or, lose that client. And then now they're not as interested as they were, or you want to be able to move quickly and show this subscription model as soon as possible.
Right. And as you're talking about that, what also comes up for me is the follow-ups. A lot of times people say, yes, they want to move forward. And then you get your contract or work agreement out, engagement letter, and then you're not hearing anything from them, where you were thinking, oh, they were going to sign it right away as soon as I send it, and then I'll get it back. And then they start thinking, okay, when should I reach out again? So anything that you have in place or recommendations as far as the follow-up and timing goes?
So the easiest one, and I do this myself, is just sending a reminder. So on Knuula, you send them this engagement letter, I can click one button and it sends a reminder. I do that with my own subscription documents. I do that all the time. And so as soon as and I do it the next day. So if I get off the phone or get off a call with a firm that's signing up, we send them our subscription terms. If I don't have anything back the next day, I just click send reminder. If another 2 days go by, click send reminder. Then maybe a week after that is when I'll reach out directly and send them an email.
Okay, I think that just sharing your process, because this is something you do all the time, is really helpful, because I have seen so many firm owners, they just sweat it, waiting for a response and then second guessing, should I go ahead and call? Am I chasing them? So on and so forth. So just sharing what you do, I think is really going to be helpful for some people. And part of what we touched on before is advisory service, hot topic, and that there's so many firms that want to start moving this direction, but they might find it difficult. So any thoughts that you have about how to be able to start making that transition to CAS services?
Yeah, and I think we might have talked about this a little bit, but one of the big things that I see as a challenge is that these firms try to roll out the most perfect subscription model ever. And so then they spend all of this time making this one model, and then when it actually comes time to roll it out, they quickly change it. They realize, oh, I don't want to put this service with this package. I don't want to put this service with this package. And you know, that's mainly when it comes to sending out client documents, because that's where they put this information. So really what I've found as like the most effective way to do this from the admin side of it is basically like have these clearly defined categories. Like that's like the most important thing for these firms is like, here are, and you can break it up by service type. So here are my tax services, all of them, a short list of tax services. You know, we prepare personal income taxes. We prepare business income taxes. You could be more specific. We prepare 1065 partnership tax returns. So they have this very specific list of tax services, very specific list of bookkeeping services, very specific list of advisory services. But the more important part is the categories that I offer: tax, bookkeeping, advisory. Those are my buckets. And so then the buckets don't really change. So if they can get that part, that's great. It's the services within that changes. And so they just need to kind of be ready for that. They need to know what their categories are and plan to put things into categories, and then know that the list that's in each category is going to grow or shrink or change.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I do with my clients. So you're speaking to the choir.
I was going to ask, how does that line up with what you advise?
Basically, I think almost anything can be packaged, and that it's really being intentional, because this way you start to take charge of your firm instead of organically just saying yes to all requests, and then the scope grows, but the fees never change. They remain pretty stagnant. And what I look at is creating 3 options. So it would be a silver, gold, and diamond level packages, and that it just depends on what you have in the package. So if some firms have wraparound services where they're doing everything, the tax, the bookkeeping, the payroll even, and then others are just in a silo, and we just go ahead and define it for you. And that way, similar to what you're doing with your engagement letters with Knuula, where it's a template and you can just make some adjustments, we create that template for their packages so that now it is more standardized. And then it just takes a couple adjustments, because I'm sure you've seen every single client needs something, a little bit of a variation, as opposed to everybody going into one silo pretty easily.
That's exactly right. And on what you're saying about the packages, that lines up perfectly as well. So one of the things I try to shoot for with the firms that are trying to put their engagement letters together for these types of packages is have your, you know, for your gold package, have your default list of here are the things that are in, no matter what, these things are always in our gold package, because then you don't need to you don't need to change the default list. So pretty much 90% of your clients who get gold will get that default list. And maybe there's these 10% of clients who are getting gold, but they're also getting these other 2 things that you need to add into it. But you're not having to reinvent the wheel for everyone if you have that default, here's the list, this is gold, this is silver, this is platinum, and these go with everyone no matter what.
And I think that it's similar to the engagement letter. The more that you can systematize something, the more efficient and effective it becomes over time. So it's more of an evolution than looking at getting it perfect right out of the gate.
Exactly. Yeah.
And talking about that, packages, subscriptions, any examples that you have where you've seen someone go from the traditional firm over to the subscription model, and some of the insights that you gained from that?
Yep. The best one is also the person who put us into contact with each other originally. It's a guy named Richard Greco, and he's out in Florida, and he has a firm, and I want to say it's about 10 employees. And Richard came to us needing something for his engagement letters, and we started meeting and having some conversations. And he told me about how all of his subscription packages and everything that he had been coming up with was through work with you. And I was like, wow, well, this is really good. It was a lot of it. And he came in, and so he already had, here are my packages. Here's generally the services that are going with each type of package. And here's some pricing options that I want us to have. And so everything was so clearly laid out that, and I was first client that came to me that had that. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. And so we just took that and we turned it into an engagement letter, a couple engagement letters really, that could kind of swap those packages in and out, depending on which one they're going with for what client. And it was awesome. And so now the cool thing about Richard is he had a very traditional practice, super traditional tax practice, hourly rates. And then he's trying to convert it into this. And basically he came in with everything categorized, which allowed him to quickly kind of get something up and running. And now he's slowly starting to increase the number of clients of his who are on this new subscription style.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I've seen with Rich is because of the fact that he has the engagement letter, it is going out so much faster, the turnaround time of onboarding, than it was before when it was all being done in-house, as you were saying, with the first doing the Word doc and then converting it to a PDF and then uploading it to Adobe or a DocuSign for signatures. That was cumbersome, and it was something that they wanted to get it out faster, but they just couldn't because of the fact that there were so many steps to that. So this is something I really see has made a difference for him and has speeded up the onboarding process. The other thing that has happened because of the transition from the traditional way that he was doing his services with the hourly rate over to subscriptions is we've also been able to change the process because it's part of value pricing and subscription stuff. Instead of getting paid in arrears with invoicing, he's now getting prepaid for his services. So once again, because he has these things in place with the packages, an engagement letter that's automated, he can now go ahead and change the pricing model of how he's getting paid, and getting paid before is so much better than getting paid in arrears afterwards.
Absolutely.
So the amount of hours overall by making some of these changes has just freed up so much capacity to actually go ahead and have the time to do more advisory level services for his client or business development. So
absolutely. I met with him yesterday, and every time we meet, it's gotten better and better in terms of what his process is, and he's very happy. And yesterday when we spoke, one of the things he mentioned was, I want to make sure that we're getting paid up front. And I was like, I think that's the way to go.
We are all on the same page with that one, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you tell me about modularity and why this might matter to firms, especially regarding the advisory and subscription models?
Okay, so modularity, I've talked about this a little bit. It's a coding term for sure. And it's the degree to which something can be separated and then recombined. So my running example that I always use is Legos. And what's the other one? Okay, it's Legos versus a dollhouse. I used to make this analogy quite a bit. Is, if you have a dollhouse, everything is fixed. So if you want to change something, you just have to get a brand new one. You can't just easily switch things in and out. Now, if you take Legos and you make a little house out of Legos, you want to change the color of something or change a wall, you can just take your little pieces and build a new wall. So that's modularity. A Lego house is super modular, so you can easily swap things in and out. And so I talk to people about being able to do that with your services. So you have your blocks, your big buckets. Here's my gold package. Inside my gold package are my little services. Those are modular little blocks. What you want is the ability to kind of easily swap things in and out and know what those things are. And so I think sometimes it's overwhelming for firms trying to switch to this new model, because they're like, oh, there's 500 different things that we can do. And so then I'm like, well, what are your buckets? Make buckets, and then make your services detached from things. So, that they can they can live on their own. We offer advisory services. We offer daily consulting or weekly consulting. That's small, that's easy. You can swap it in and out. And so it's the idea of having kind of these bigger categories of things And then within those categories, small items that you can easily interchange.
And what I'm hearing is that there's some essentials that people are going to need in each of these different packages. And then we want to have the flexibility to be client-centered and really meet the needs of each of our clients. And that's where there's some flexibility. And you can go ahead and customize by adding in some that will really make a difference or is important to that particular client that you're starting to work with. I've just never heard the word modularity before.
Yeah, I use it probably too much, but yeah, and it's really, and one of the ones with Richard specifically that we ended up doing is he now has kind of a bucket for random services. And these are the ones so here's my tiers, here's my packages that I offer. And occasionally I have to offer some other services. And so he has this list of these random services that he charges separately for, and he's able to kind of plug those in when he needs to. Then that's one way we've used it with him.
The beauty of automating, creating template systems and not having to reinvent the wheel every single time. So another term that I've heard you use is scannability. And please go ahead and let's understand, what does it mean and why do firms need to care about this?
Yeah, so that's just, we look at that in the coding world for design purposes. If you're like a user interface design person, and it's just the ability, how quickly can I just glance at something and understand generally what's in it? And so now the example would be like a paragraph, multiple paragraphs where you put your services inside the paragraph somewhere versus a bullet point list of services. Here are my services, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the bullet list is scannable. A client can easily open it, glance at it for 5 seconds, and they get it. They understand. The paragraph one, they're just not going to read it because they just can't scan it. And these days, modern clients expect that they can scan things. So when you're on social media or you're looking at news articles, whatever it is these days, it's scannable. You can easily browse through it and read it quickly. And so that's what firms need to do so that their clients can quickly know what they're getting and easily just glance at a document and know what it says.
And is that something that you have in the design for your engagement letters with Knuula as well?
Absolutely, yes. And especially with people who are doing what you're talking about, with the tiers and the packages and all of that. We do that.
Now, another thing that comes to mind for me with scannability is bolding. Is that something that you have any recommendations on?
You say bulleting?
But bold. So some things are in
bold
bold text as opposed to normal text.
Absolutely. So I generally say put, like the boilerplate legalese type stuff, like big paragraphs and stuff, just leave that at the bottom, maybe put it in a terms and conditions section. But for services and pricing, make those bold, make them stand out, wherever possible.
And I know that there are still some firms out there that don't even use a work agreement or a contract whatsoever, or maybe they have one because they found it online somewhere and just use the basic boilerplate model. And any thoughts about having that one size fits all engagement letter, or even not having one whatsoever?
Not having one whatsoever is bad.
So okay, let's go ahead and just go with the essentials. Someone that hasn't been using one whatsoever. And there are people out there that are doing that still, Jamie. So what's the importance of having one? And then why do you want to maybe move away from just the one boilerplate one that's generic?
Having one in general. I mean, there's
Yeah.
the liability side of it for sure. And I used to actually kind of think that was the more important part. But really what I've found is it's more about managing expectations. It's so that your client knows what's going on. Because if your client knows what to expect, you will receive less questions. They will not be sending as many emails about the questions about what am I getting? What are you doing? When should I receive this? So that takes you actually into and then how about a boilerplate one, which is super general, not specific at all. I think that presents the same issue where you're not managing expectations very well. If you're just giving everyone the same generic thing, then none of your clients are going to actually know what they're getting, and you're going to get more questions. It's going to lead to more disputes where they're going to say, hey, I'm sending you this. Can you take care of it? And then you're going to go, no, no, no. And they're going to go, well, what was I paying for in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that happens, now you have an issue. You might be having to do a discount, or you're going to have to, add services that are out of scope. So the more specific that you can be, the better your client understands what's going to happen. They know what to expect. So then when you deliver on it, you're good to go, and they pay you properly, or hopefully up front. And then also when they come in, they say, hey, I want this other thing that we haven't talked about. They're going to know that was not on the list that I originally sent. So you're going to make them a new engagement letter, or add that service, or increase the fee or something. But you're not going to be, if you do something boilerplate, you might have to do these extra services without getting paid extra money for them.
Okay, part of what I'm hearing then is that, first of all, the work agreement manages expectations. It sets the tone of how the two of you, or how you and this new client, are going to move forward and work together. I think that also by having one that's more customized really raises your perception of expertise, moving more as an advisor as opposed to technician. And the other part that you were mentioning, which is so true, is there's so many costly oversights when you take a shortcut or you avoid doing something, and the time, money, as well as frustration part of it is something that can be avoided if you put this in place and do something proactively instead of putting out fires after the fact.
Absolutely. You said it better than I did.
Okay, so any insights or tips for firms who are looking to really ramp up the way that they're being seen, moving into the advisory space? As a result, they want to have a more professional engagement letter that represents what they're doing. And it also allows them to move away from the time-based pricing over towards value pricing. So what hot tips do you have for those firms?
Well, I mean, the biggest one is that they talk to you. That's what I mean. I'm going to continue recommending to other firms that I talk to who are trying to figure this out, because a lot of them just do not know where to start. And so I mean it. I think that they should talk to you. And then after that, it's really just categorize what you do. Make big categories. Figure out what it is. You do bookkeeping services. That is one big category. You do advisory. That's its own category. You do tax. Put things in that. Understand what it is that you actually provide. Because right now, in the head of most CPAs that are switching to this kind of model, it's just this giant list of 500 things. That's what I do. That's what I provide my clients. This unorganized concept of what you do. So organize it. Put it into categories, because that alone is going to allow you to kind of assemble it into a package that makes sense, and that you can kind of expand on as you go.
And so I think the main thing that I'm hearing is, and that I would suggest, is really get very, very clear about what it is that you do, and then all of the back office tasks, workflows, functions that go into being able to deliver that service or product to your client. Is that the main thing that you're saying helps them move into this direction, so they can then just plug it into the engagement letter?
Yeah, I think it's the best first step, is just kind of reorganizing it into some broader categories. And then once they figured out their packages, then they come to the engagement letter. I mean, I do believe that Knuula is kind of the best way to deliver those kinds of engagement letters. And we make it so there's basically a default version of every one of your packages. There's also this ability to easily, for specific clients only, to add extra services to their package. And we make that super simple. And so for 90% of your clients who they just get the basic package that you've already defined, it's automated. For the 10% of clients who need something specific added onto it, it's super easy. And so, yes, I do think that we're probably the best system for the administration side of these documents. And so, yeah, I mean, I recommend people use it or at least talk to us, and we can kind of help give them an idea.
And even what I'm thinking is, go to your website to be able to see a visual of what it looks like, because it's a great concept, and I can see the power of it, especially when the ability to automate something, because so many of the functions they've automated from manual to AI, and this is just the next level that they ought to be really moving forward with, is taking the engagement letter process and moving away from the manual process over to AI as well. So Jamie, you've made some really powerful points today. I continue to learn each and every time that we have a conversation.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we covered was client-friendly engagement letters, the impact of how this allows firms to move into the subscription model and integrate this, and then those hot tips to really make it an effective engagement letter. So once again, if somebody wanted to have a conversation with you about how to start automating the process to be able to be more accurate with their engagement letters, to have that transparency with clients and ease the onboarding process, what's the best way for them to reach out with you?
Yep, they can, if they find me on LinkedIn, that's great. Just look me up and you can message me if you like. You can also email me. So my email is Jamie, Jamie, at Knuula, KNUULA.com, Jamie@Knuula.com. But you feel free to message me on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. I appreciate the engaging conversation. This is Loren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing accounting firms how to double their income working half the time.